Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to be?
They are horrendous crimes, massacres, torture, rape, mutilation, forcing children to fight wars. But the perpetrators, who are they, and how will they be held responsible? The International Criminal Court, the ICC, was established 10 years ago this week to prosecute war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Its power is derived from the nations who have signed on to the so-called Rome Statute, which established the ICC. Most, but far from all nations, have signed on to the treaty, thereby limiting its ability to act. Until recently, the ICC's chief prosecutor was Luis Moreno Ocampo. Under him, the court opened investigations into 7 cases, all of them in Africa. It issued arrest warrants for 20 individuals, notably Sudan's President Omar Al-Bashir. But only one suspect has been convicted so far: Congolese warlord Thomas Lubanga, who was found guilty of recruiting child soldiers earlier this year after a 7-year-long process. When Ocampo's term ended, the selection of a new chief prosecutor took on political undertones. Critics said the ICC must be faster and it must turn its attention to conflicts around the world, not just in Africa. Now, the woman who served as Ocampo's deputy has been promoted to the top job. We sit down with Fatou Bensouda to discuss how she intends to bring justice to victims of the most serious crimes in the world. Fatou Bensouda, thank you very much indeed for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for having me.
The International Criminal Court was created 10 years ago with the mission of ending impunity through the just rule of law. How do you reflect today on this anniversary milestone?
I think the court has, in the past 10 years, established itself as a relevant player in the international relations. We were set up to fight against impunity by bringing perpetrators to account for the crimes of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And I believe that much of this has been achieved. The message that we need to send, that this is what we are about, has been given in this past 10 years. We have quite a few cases now in the ICC case docket. 27 persons have been charged or accused of these serious crimes. We have just concluded a trial, and we are, in the coming days, continuing with other cases that are already before the court.
Just precisely, where do you think the court has succeeded, and where does more work need to be done?
First of all, by bringing the court to be known to this level of becoming such a relevant player, I believe that is a success that the court can really proudly claim to be. And of course, our work continues. Over the past 10 years, we have been working on setting up the office and working on improving our working methods, because this has to be done. And I think that in the coming years, what we have achieved is a good opportunity for us to build up upon and move the court forward.
But as you are aware, Ms. Bensouda, many question the court's capacity to achieve its mission. As you said yourself, it's only completed one case in 10 years. So there's been a long time and a lot of expenses, $1 billion. If you compare that, for instance, to the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which has completed some 50 cases, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia has convicted more than 60 people. Why has the pace of justice been so slow when it comes to the ICC?
First of all, you have to compare that both the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia as well as the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, started way before the International Criminal Court.
Right, 1994 in the case of Rwanda.
1994, and ICC started in 2002. But you need to look at how ICC was established in comparison to the ad hoc tribunals. First of all, the advantage that the ad hoc tribunals have over the ICC is that there is Chapter 7 can be used. Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter can be used to bring
the
people.
responsibility to protect.
Yes, exactly. Can be used to bring perpetrators of these crimes before these tribunals. The ICC does not have that. The ICC depends to a very large extent on the cooperation of states to be able to execute its mandate, to be able to execute the decisions of the court. If that cooperation is not forthcoming, ICC has great difficulty in executing its functions. But coming back to having completed just one case, I think you should recall that the ICC was set up in 2002. When it was set up, it is not that we opened our doors and cases started falling on our laps. In fact, contrary to what everybody believes, that these cases have taken 10 years, this is quite to the contrary. In fact, this first case that we have completed, we only got the referral in 2005. And of course, we had to investigate. You have to recall that when we investigate, in most cases, we are investigating in situations of ongoing conflict. We need to ensure that witnesses and victims are protected. We need to investigate in such a way that we do not expose those who give us our story.
But aren't these rules too cumbersome in the ICC? I mean, shouldn't they be, for instance, indictments, for instance, be more narrowly drawn? It seems that the rules are too cumbersome when you compare to the ad hoc tribunals that you just mentioned.
I do not think so. If you look at the charges in Lubanga, I think it is one of those that can make record of very focused charges. It is the first time...
Yet the criticism being that there weren't enough charges against Thomas Lubanga also.
That was the criticism, but I think it was mainly focused on the fact that we did not charge other crimes of killings, of sexual violence, etc. I believe that now, with the Lubanga decision, a unanimous decision convicting him, and giving the prosecution the opportunity to lay out the Lubanga case, has vindicated all those criticisms in the sense that for child recruitment, child soldiers, we have tried, and I think we succeeded, in bringing out the gender dimensions, for example, of child soldiers, what these children go through once they are conscripted into these armies forcibly. We have laid that out as the evidence, and it became quite an important debate, even with the chambers. So I think that those charges being brought by the Office of the Prosecutor, focusing on this very serious crime, I think today the Office of the Prosecutor has been vindicated.
Now, as you know, the ICC has also been accused of selective justice. It's had an exclusively African caseload. Can we expect a new approach to Africa with an African woman now in the top job?
I believe you have to understand that this is not a pick and choose. ICC is not a pick and choose justice. We are not in Africa by choice. We did not go to Africa to try cases because that's what we wanted to do. I have said, and I continue to repeat, that Africa is taking leadership in international criminal justice. And this has to be realized. And this has to be adjusted to. And I can cite the cases that we have in Africa and how we got there. All of the cases, in fact, except the Kenya case, in which the prosecutor used his proprio motor powers, the then prosecutor, are at the invitation of African states, requesting ICC's intervention.
But how do you, as the new ICC prosecutor, address this concern of bias towards Africa? I mean, are you going to be opening investigations in other parts of the world, for instance?
I will go to any place that the crimes under the jurisdiction of the court are being committed and nothing is being done to address them, whether it is in Africa or outside of Africa. I'm not ruling out cases outside of Africa, but my mandate dictates that I go to where ICC has jurisdiction, where the crimes are being committed, and it is not being addressed at the national level.
Are you looking at any specific cases in any specific part of the world right now?
Well, you will know that there are quite a few cases now under preliminary examinations. It is not only within Africa, but outside of it. Places like Honduras, places like Afghanistan, places like Korea. These are all places, situations that are Colombia, for example. These are all cases that are currently under preliminary examinations. And if we are not satisfied that the crimes are being addressed the way they should be, then we go to the next phase, which is investigations.
Now, just coming back to the Africa issue, what do you say to those who say that you, Fatou Bensouda, was chosen for this position because you're African and that this was an attempt, a way for the ICC to deflect criticism? What do you say to them?
I do not think that I was elected because I'm an African. I believe I was elected based on my experience, based on my qualifications, and the fact that I am in a position to handle this.
I don't think there's any discussion that you satisfied the merit-based criteria, but you can't deny that you also satisfied all the political criteria. I mean, the African Union was very adamant that an African should be in this position now, and they got their choice. They got their wish, I should say.
You see, I think the African Union should be given credit for what it has done in this case. The African Union is once again showing leadership. It is once again showing that they're interested. Africa is still interested in the leadership at the International Criminal Court, which they have every right to do like any other region. So I do not know why the positive aspects of this is not being looked at, but only taken that because I'm a woman, because I'm an African, I'm satisfying all the political issues, therefore I am the right person for the job. I think this is besides the point.
Well, the African Union, as you said, lobbied intensively for your candidacy. Do you expect more assistance, more cooperation now from the African Union?
I will definitely look to that. I will definitely look to cooperation from African states, and it is one of my priority areas to ensure that I reach out, to Africa, to the region, to African states, and seek for support, especially those states that have already signed and ratified the Rome Statute and are part of the ICC.
Let's just take a look at some of the cases that the ICC has taken on, and one of the controversial ones, perhaps the most controversial one, is that of Omar Al-Bashir. As you said, 33 African countries have ratified the Rome Statute. How do you explain that Omar Al-Bashir still hasn't been arrested 3 years after the arrest warrant against him was issued? Why is that, do you think? You
know the way that ICC has been set up. We do our legal part. We investigate and we request for arrest warrants to issue. This is our part. And if we do have the person brought before the court, we prosecute. But the obligation to arrest, the obligation to execute the warrants of the court are with the state's parties. And for my part, I can only say that we've done what we were supposed to do, and I think it is up to the state's parties to ensure that Omar Al-Bashir is arrested and brought to the court.
Are you hopeful that he will be arrested?
I think his destiny is with the ICC.
You talked about expecting more cooperation from the African Union, yet when you look at the African Union's posture on Malawi recently, they put tremendous pressure on Malawi not to exclude Omar Al-Bashir from the upcoming African Union summit in July, even though Malawi has now said that they would arrest Omar Al-Bashir if he attended. But when you take a look at the African Union's entrenched position on not handing over Omar Al-Bashir, how can you possibly expect any assistance from them?
I think we have to recall that it is not, I did not say that we are not receiving cooperation from Africa, because what is important for us here is individual African states' cooperation with the court. And if you look at our records and statistics today, over 90% of our requests for assistance from individual African states are being honored. They are responding, and they are responding positively to those requests. Even as we speak today, we do have requests for assistance that have been directed to African states, and we are receiving positive response to that.
But no one has been arrested yet. I mean, Omar Al-Bashir hasn't been arrested yet.
Omar Al-Bashir hasn't been arrested, but Thomas Lubanga has been arrested and surrendered. Matthew Ngujolo Chui has been arrested and surrendered. Jahman Katanga has been arrested and surrendered by African states. And in fact, African states worked very closely with Belgium to arrest Jean-Pierre Bemba,
right,
to transfer them to the court. It is not yet time, perhaps, for Bashir, but I believe that he will be arrested as well, eventually.
Could it be also, could the reluctance of some African countries to arrest Omar Al-Bashir be due to the fact that there are no punitive sanctions associated with the Rome Statute? I mean, except for referring a country to the Security Council, there are no punitive measures. So really, there's no incentive for these countries to arrest Omar Al-Bashir.
I think the incentive that African states have had in arresting other persons that are wanted by the ICC might as well be the incentive that one country one day will have to arrest Omar Al-Bashir and surrender him to the court. As you know, when we request for arrests for any individual, and this is not done, or the court is not being cooperated with, as you've rightly said, what we do is we go back to the Assembly of States Parties, or we go back to the UN Security Council to report that we are not receiving cooperation. But
and then nothing happens.
That is what the statute is. That is what the statute is. And I think that it needs political will on the part of states to ensure that they are assisting the court, because that is what the court needs, assistance to be able to bring these persons wanted before the court.
Just coming back to Omar Al-Bashir, which again is a very controversial case for the ICC, just for our viewers, for the sake of clarity, because I think a lot of people don't get this. Why is Omar Al-Bashir, the sitting head of state of Sudan, not party to the status of head of state immunity under international law? Why is that?
This is because under the ICC statute, there is no immunity for anyone, including heads of states. And you rightly said, Sudan is not a state party to the Rome Statute. But the ICC came to be seized of the case against President Al-Bashir as a result of a referral by the United Nations Security Council, requesting ICC's intervention and ICC's investigations into the Darfur issue. Our investigations, apart from President Al-Bashir, also led us to other people whom we have indicted, and the case is currently before the court.
Let's talk about the ICC and its future. Now, two big absent players in the ICC are, of course, China and the United States. But we have seen the Americans of lately become more cooperative, it seems, on a selective number of cases. Joseph Kony, for instance, they sent in troops to try and track him down in the Central African Republic. Are you hopeful? Do you think that there's a possibility the Obama administration, which has been, it seems, less hostile to the ICC than the previous administration, is there a possibility that the U.S. could one day sign the Rome Statute?
You are right. We have been receiving quite good cooperation from the U.S. in the instance of Joseph Kony. And if you recall also, even with the genocide case of Bashir, it was the U.S. that also first, I think, claimed that there was genocide taking place.
But perhaps all this because it's an election year in the United States, and that they...
No, but you see, with whether it is the U.S., whether it is China, or any other country, as an official of the court, it is not for me to lobby for them joining the ICC. I mean, that is outside of my mandate. What I can say is that ICC is trying as much as possible to gain universality, by ratifying, as many countries as possible. Ratifying the ICC will be good for ICC. But on the other hand, also, I think in spite of these absent states, ICC has done quite well until now.
Let's talk about Syria. Your appointment comes, of course, at a time when all eyes are on Syria. We've heard France and the UN Human Rights Council say Syria should be referred to the International Criminal Court. Is that a case that the ICC could take on?
We have no jurisdiction. Syria is not a state party to the Rome Statute. It is not part of the ICC system.
But if it was referred by the Security Council?
If it was referred
which
by
seems
the
highly
UN,
unlikely at this stage, given the way things are going.
We will see if that happens. We will see.
So if that happens, then the ICC could take on the Syria case?
First of all, we don't just take cases just because they're referred. Of course, there are steps that we need to take to see whether the crimes that fall within ICC jurisdiction are being committed there.
But as a prosecutor, when you hear about all these crimes that are being committed in Syria, the Hula massacre and so on, how do you feel? Do you feel powerless?
Sometimes it's frustrating to see some of these crimes being committed and not being able to intervene because I'm limited in my jurisdiction.
Okay. Let's talk about you, Fatou Bensouda, if we can. Your country, the Gambia, is notorious as one of West Africa's last dictatorships. I mean, any opposition to President Yahya Jammeh's 18-year rule is widely suppressed. Why did you accept to serve in his government back in 1998 as Justice Minister?
First of all, that is your view about what you said. But just to,
Gambia
just to say,
the Gambia is not really an example for democracy in Africa, is it? Okay, so why did you serve in President Jammeh's government back in 1998? What made you take on that role as Justice Minister?
I feel, as I still do now, that I can always contribute to my country's development in whatever way I can. I was serving my country before I was selected to be a minister. I was serving my country in other capacities. I had served as Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, likewise as Solicitor General and Legal Secretary. And I have to say, quite frankly, that my work as Justice Minister has never been interfered with. I was able to contribute positively to the change that was happening in my country. And looking back to that, I do not regret it. I think that I have contributed, like others have done, to the development and moving our country ahead. So when I was requested at that time to serve my country, I felt it as a call of duty, and I took that call of duty and I did my best. I believe my track record in that country will speak for me.
Okay, one last question, Fatou Bensouda. How does your African background play into your new role as head of the International Criminal Court?
To start with, I think that the ICC has been very active in Africa, as I said, not by choice, but because I believe Africa is taking leadership in international criminal justice. I think that I am well placed to relate as positively as possible in this role and in the work that we are doing currently in Africa. I believe that it may be easier as an African. Not that Africans don't mix with other people, but I believe that it is easy for me to be able to reach out to other African leaders, other Africans who are concerned about justice and accountability, and to be able to speak to them about what this new institution is all about, what this new institution has come to address, and to seek for support from these leaders.
Fatou Bensouda, thank you very much indeed for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you talking to us.